course it was free. Milton didn't feel as if his workers needed to pay to go to a park in their own hometown. All hail to thee, Milton Hershey, loyal and true are we. To stand by thee and each other, our pledge will ever be. Thy brown and gold we cherish, and thy traditions dear. Proudly we sing thy praises for all the world to hear. Then stand we firmly united through all the years to come, by friendship and fond memories of youth and school and home. We're proud of Milton Hershey and proud to that great name. Life's filled with strength and honor to add to Spartan fame. Some contributions again. Milton and Kitty, I'm not sure if you guys knew, but my dear friends were unable to have children. This is how Milton Hershey and his wife decided to establish a school. Back in 1909, they said, listen, we want to help the children that are less fortunate, that may not have a chance. Boys specifically is who it was meant for. And when they opened this school, the idea was that they were going to introduce them to a style of school that they could leave school and be able to go right into a workforce, have a trade. Not that they were going to leave school and go on to college, because back then it was very expensive, as it still is, and it was just better that Milton thought, okay, listen, you go to school, you come out of school, and you can get a job right away. And so that is what his first and original thought was. Some of the first students that were at that school were brothers Nelson and Irvin Wagner. They lived with what would be called house parents, and that was George and Prudence Copenhaver. Later on, they were joined by 8 other boys, and eventually their younger brother, William. Alright, so Milton's great legacy, now that he's gone, some of the great things that in his name, everyone has helped keep his name alive, and one of those things is in 1963, his fund actually donated $50 million to help get this medical center off of the ground, so that there could be a place in Hershey that people can come to. It's very well known. And in 1970, they accepted their very first patients. According to Penn State Hershey, they also have a children's hospital, they have a medical school, and they have research institutions on campus. They provide medical, surgical, and pediatric care to everyone. Again, with the school, today the school remains free to anyone that attends. It's funded by the trust, and it holds children from pre-K to 12th grade. When this school is attended, as Milton and Kitty intended, they don't have to pay for anything. You get to go to school and have a great education, and your parents don't have to worry about, how am I going to get my kids a great education without having to live on the streets, while they go to school. And so because of that, Milton made sure that anyone that attended that school would be there cost-free. I'd like to add also with that when he built this school, there's a great emphasis on the structure of how they behave. Also, how they do academically. Although it wasn't preparing you for college, you still needed to have good grades. You couldn't just go in, act a hooligan, and sit there and not do your work. You absolutely needed to behave, and you needed to maintain good grades. Some of the other legacies that are left behind by my dear friend Milton that I'm not sure if you guys know about would be the Botanical Garden, a zoo. All of these are located in Hershey, PA. We also have a museum and a theater that are named after our dear friend Milton. And obviously, next to the park is the infamous Hershey town. I'm sure everyone has probably heard of Hershey, PA. They have a population of 14,257. The median age there is about 39. It's a wonderful community. As you drive down the streets, you'll see Homestead Drive, Chocolate Lane. Wonderful, wonderful people live in this community. I can remember Milton and I having a conversation, and he said to me, the value of our good is not measured by what it does, but by the amount of good it does to the one concerned. And this is so true of Milton himself. He always wanted to help other people. He was not a selfish, greedy person. Obviously, he put all of his money into a trust fund so that people can continue to learn and grow and have a great community. Now that I have enlightened you on some of my dear friend's great accomplishments and his legacy, let me introduce to you his dear friend Charles, who will discuss Milton's three loves, his wife, his business, and his country.
Morning, everyone. We're going to be handing out some cupcakes made with Hershey chocolate, so we can remember a little bit about him. I want you guys to have something sweet before we get into the better topic that is the last days of Milton and Hershey's life. So please, please have a taste. It's okay.
You're welcome.
The cupcake, yep. You just pop the cupcake out. However we want to do it. That I have given you something sweet to taste, I would like to delve into the not so sweet moments, a few of them, in Milton S. Hershey's life.
Yes, Charles, this was Milton and Kitty dancing. Yes, I remember this. Yes, I do.
They were definitely,
They were some dancers back in the day.
they were trendsetters, when I say.
Yes.
Brings tears to my eyes. Milton S. Hershey met Catherine, also known as Kitty, Sweeney in 1897. At the time, she was the old age of 26, and he was just a ripe 40-year-old man looking for love. At the time, she worked as a shop girl, the fair where they met, and he was at the time a successful confectioner. The two ended up getting married a year later, which it was a long time because, you know, she was playing hard to get. His family disapproved. His friends were shocked. They had pictured that Milton was going to be a lifetime bachelor. After all, he had all this wealth, and he could have any woman he wanted, and yet he married the first one he saw, it seemed. But in 1903, Kitty began to exhibit signs of illness. Her health began to decline, unfortunately. So even though their love was true and full of love, it was not meant to be a long one. In 1912, actually, her sickness helped save Hershey from being on board the Titanic. Hershey was the kind of man who just wanted the newest and best things coming out. And when he saw that there was a boat coming out, the largest in the world, he said, I have to be on it. Kitty, unfortunately, or fortunately for them in the end, was sick, so they couldn't make it. He tried to sell the tickets to me, and I was like, I don't know about that. So I had to pass on it.
Thank heavens.
Yes, of course. in 1912, that's when this occurred, as we all know from what happened to the Titanic about 20 years ago. In 1915, sadly, she died, and Milton became a widow. So, but at least she was able to give him 3 more years of love together. Milton, as hero as we knew him.
That is the Milton I knew.
Yes. Could have been an inventor.
Yes.
After the stock market crash in 1929, there we go. After Kitty's death, Milton continued to fight for his dreams. He said, "I won't let this stop me. Kitty would want me to continue living." And I knew her. He would have been right. By 1915, the chocolate plant covered 35 acres. That's a lot. I couldn't tell you how much, but it's a lot more than my house. By 1921, sales went from 600,000 to 20 billion. If I had to assume by 2019, random year, this would accumulate to about $3 billion. That's a lot. But not all was great for the town of Hershey, unfortunately. After the stock market crashed in 1921, but Hershey said, "You know what? I'm going to help my town out." So he began the Great Building Campaign, which made sure that people were employed rather than fired during the Great Depression, which is something that a lot of companies did not do during that time. Thanks to him, 600 men, just men, not men, were employed during the Great Depression rather than unemployed. Not only did the town survive, something that many places did not, but it actually thrived under his leadership. And that is something to be thankful to him about. Such a patriot.
Yes.
He loved our country, didn't he? After World War I, people thought, hey, there's not going to be a second one. But apparently there was. The military was looking for their next best chocolate. They needed something that soldiers could eat as a last resort. For the chocolate they were looking for, it needed to meet 4 requirements. It needed to weigh about 4 ounces. It needed to withstand high temperatures. And needed to be high in energy value and taste a little better than a boiled potato. Their words, not mine. And so in 1943, only a few years ago, Hershey's Tropical Bar was introduced. The bar was better tasting than the previous one they tried. I would say I had it myself. It tasted definitely a little better than a boiled potato. The bar is also able to retain its shape after an hour in 120 degree weather, which it gets hot. By the end of World War II, in this year, 1945, the company had produced around 380 million tropical bars. That's a lot of chocolate. For their contributions to their country, the company was awarded 5 Army Navy E awards because their contributions were excellent. But sadly, Milton S. Hershey died, as you know, October 13, 1945. But he died a hero. Here are some of the wonderful things that Hershey gave us, from their products to their park, the hospital, their factory, and all these children here who ended up getting an education from this great man. But I want to move away from the sadness of this ceremony. Let's talk a little bit about something good. Like, for instance, these cupcakes, which were a gift from H.B. Reese. As you know, he owns Reese's. You know, not a big deal. But rumor has it that Hershey's in looks of maybe a merger in the coming time. But I guess that's to be seen.
Would you like one?
Oh, well, actually,
If you don't want a cupcake, don't you're free to say no.
Milton spoke to me on his deathbed, and I would like to.
He did?
Yes.
Oh,
I was one of the last people to see him. I was actually visiting someone else and happened to stumble upon the wrong room. But that didn't change the fact that it was a special moment between us two.
And what did he tell you, Charles?
Oh, well, he was so glad that all his friends came out to see his memorial. Well, it hadn't happened yet, of course, but I did tell him we were going to throw one because he was going to die. So, wanted to prepare him. And he wanted to bestow some gifts to his wonderful friends.
Oh, what did he leave them?
Oh my goodness, where did these come from?
I don't know. Well, in your gifts, there's some information of places that Milton S. Hershey wanted you to visit. There's some products he wanted you to taste and use and see and keep around you, because by keeping these things around you and visiting these places, his wish was that you will keep his memory alive.
He also left them 10% of his stock, didn't he, for the Hershey?
Well, or so I've heard.
That's what I heard too.
So, my helpers, because it's the 40s, so they will be handing out some stock certificates, as well as some baskets for the my dear cousin.
Go, sir.
That's your name.
This whole thing?
That whole thing.
Yes. Now the baskets obviously were
Ah,
for
yes, Lady Destiny.
yes, for his OG friends.
The OG friends.
Yes. Which means original great friends, because it's the 40s.
You're welcome.
Oh, Magic Christina.
You're welcome.
But that is it for me. My helpers will just finish up passing the last part. And
Thank you all for coming to our
Yes.
funeral for Milton.
He would greatly appreciate it. We greatly appreciate it. And we hope that you enjoy having 10% in his stock.
yes. Might be worth something someday.
It may be.
Who knows?
What the future holds. All right, well, thanks for coming. It's been all.
This is awesome.